Hello, everyone. This is a short presentation about how the automatic Foley and footstep detection tool works. To start with, it all lives in a widget that we called the Audio Animation Tools widget blueprint. And this is a window that will have all the buttons and data necessary to do the automatic footstep and Foley generation. So how does it work? Here we're going to take an example animation. Let's take many and let's take its run forward animation. We can see there already has been a generation. So for now, let's delete it and let's start from 0. So we have our character walking here. So what we will do is this animation, we can add it on the animation sequences we want to analyze. So we can simply go here and set it here, or to make it easy to use, we can actually take all of the animation files and append them to the list. So we are going to analyze all of those. Then we have presets that we will look into later, but by default, we have a bunch of data to set up here. For the footsteps, we have to define what are the bones of the feet, how they're called. So that we can find in the skeleton. Here we have the list of all the bones in the skeleton of the model. And here we have foot L and ball L, which is like the end of the foot. So we will using foot L. So we can copy that name and set it here as one of the feet. And I already know that the other foot is foot R. Then we have to set some audio settings. For example, what is the sound cue that we want to use for this animation file? So here we have one which is simply an example. If we are to open it, we can see that it just has a random switch between different events. It's obviously possible to have something more complicated. This is just for the example. And here we also have a speed parameter. Our tool is going to analyze at what speed the foot goes when it touches the ground to be able to have lighter footsteps and heavier footsteps. And so here we're using that continuous modulator that will change the pitch and the volume depending on that parameter footstep speed. So here we're simply indicating this is the name of the parameter we're using. And then there's some detection settings, which is, for example, at what height is the ground and what is a margin we're using to calculate that height. This is normally stable per project. It just depends on how your animators work and where do they put the root of the models they're using. The window that we're using for the speed calculation, so how much of a average we're using. The sensitivity, this lets us filter out footsteps that are too small to actually be relevant for what we're doing. And we simply have a margin for the animation edges. By default, it can be 0. It's just sometimes we would have animations where there was T-poses in the beginning and the end. And so these would create like clutter. So this is why we had that margin set up. The footstep detection method, I won't talk about it right now, but it's pretty much the idea that there's different ways we can detect footsteps, and this one lets you choose different ones. And so once we set up all of this and we have our animations appended, we can click on Generate Footsteps. We're going to see that it will tell us, hey, by the way, there's a bunch of animations where we didn't create any footstep. And if we look at it here, we can see that indeed it didn't. And if we look at the run animation, it says, oh, the lowest position for this bone was 8.2 and the highest position was 58. So we can assume that our ground level isn't actually right. It's probably somewhere around a bit higher than 8 because the foot has to go lower. So let's put it at 10 and let's generate again. Let's see. Okay, now we see we have these parameters. If I feel like, oh, the timing seems to be maybe a bit off, maybe my setting isn't right, I can always go back here and regenerate, and it's gonna delete what it generated before and regenerate on top of that. We can see that it still told us like, oh, for example, for the walk, it didn't work. So actually 10 is closer. Look, so if we go to walk, oh, not even. Let's do 11. Okay, this looks better. So we have the walking and we have the running. Okay, obviously, landing doesn't have anything because it's already on the ground. Falling loop, well, these are from all older generations. These are Foley, not footsteps. Or there's no footsteps because the animation isn't going like on the ground. Whereas this one, for example, has them. So it will automatically try to understand what it does. Obviously, the idea is not that it's going to get it perfect 100% of the time, but at least a bunch. And so you can just correct whenever there's issues. Let's talk just quickly about presets. Obviously, setting all of this can be a bother, mostly if, for example, different skeletons have different names for their different parts, or if you want to use different footstep sounds. Let's say, for example, one character has boots. We want something that is boots, whereas another character walks barefoot all the time. The idea is that these settings can be saved as a preset. So here, for example, we have a preset example, which simply says, these are the names of my bones, and these are the audio settings that I want to use. So you can load presets and save them. This way you can easily change depending on the character, for example. That was our case. For the Foley, it's just below. It functions the same way. So you will define what elements you want to be detected for Foley. Usually what works pretty well for us is using the arm, the front of the arm, which would be lower arm, I guess. Yes, lower arm L. This usually works pretty nicely. Obviously, it's not going to be a perfect Foley generation like someone on a Foley studio would do, but most of the time, the kind of things we notice in video games that we wanted some movement on were like someone saying hello from afar, or someone walking and then their arms move with them. So that's usually what we would do. So we would have lower arm L or lower arm R, but actually let's use our preset. Oh, we're using the hand apparently. So hand, and we're using a Foley sound cue, which again is simply a random. And here we just have two parameters this time, not only the speed, but the length of the movement. So in the case of Foley, our tool analyzes two things. How fast was the arm moving, and also for how long was the hand moving. This will let us modulate the sound so that it works. And again, some sort of detection settings, which is like how fast do we want the arms to start moving before we actually say, hey, play a sound, and what's the minimum movement duration. This lets us filter out what would be more artifacts rather than actual sounds and movements. So same way then with footsteps, if we generate Foley, now on the run, we can see that the autogen full foot here are the footsteps and the autogen hand are the Foley. And so now we have, whenever the hands are moving, also Foley being generated. But for example, on the fall loop now we also have Foley playing because the hands are moving a bit. Let's say, for example, we actually don't want that because we consider that the hands are not moving enough. Then we can simply increase the speed threshold here. Now, apparently that at this frame, the hand moves quickly enough that it said, oh, we still need to put a Foley. I think that kind of summarizes it.